The Yakuza originated during the Tokugawa shogunate, 1603 to 1868, with two distinct groups of outcasts. The takiya were the earliest of these groups. Traveling peddlers who moved from village to village selling low-quality products at festivals and markets. Many takiya belonged to the burakumin social class, a group of outcasts or non-humans that existed underneath Japan's four-tiered feudal social order. In the early 1700s, the takiya began to organize themselves into tight-knit groups under the leadership of bosses and underbosses. Between 1735 and 1749, the shogun's government sought to calm gang wars by appointing oyabun, or officially sanctioned bosses. Oyabun literally means foster parent, signifying the boss's positions as the heads of their takiyas. The second group that gave rise to the Yakuzas was the bakudo, or gamblers. Gambling was strictly forbidden during Tokugawa times and remains illegal in Japan to this day. Even today, Yakuza gangs may identify as tikis or bakuts depending on how they generate the majority of their money. They frequently had colorful tattoos all over their bodies, which inspired modern-day Yakuza to practice full-body tattooing. One of the deadliest Yakuza conflicts in history occurred in 1985, albeit it had been developing for a few years prior. When the Oyabun, patriarch/father of Yamaguchi-gumi, the largest Yakuza group, died of natural circumstances, the trouble began. His second-in-command was in prison, and it was decided that when he was released, he would take over as leader. Unfortunately, he died in prison. The lieutenants chose a new commander, but Hiroshi Yamamoto was dissatisfied with the results. He founded his own gang, the Ichiwakai, and promptly assassinated the elected leader, sparking the conflict. By the end of the war, 36 people had been killed and many more had been injured. The name Yakuza originates from the traditional Japanese card game Oichokubo, a game in which the goal is to draw 3 cards adding up to a score of 9. The player's score in this game is decided by adding the scores on several cards and using only the smallest digit. Because 8 plus 9 plus 3 is equal to 20 equals 0 points, 893 means no points. So the original meaning of the Yakuza Ya for Yatsu, 8, Ku for 9 and Za for San, 3 was no points or useless. Later this meaning changed to useless people or gambling people. According to police estimates, gang membership peaked at over 184,000 in the early 1960s. However, by the early 21st century, their membership had shrunk to around 80,000, divided nearly evenly between ordinary members and associates. Members are organized into hundreds of gangs, most of which are associated with one of around 20 conglomerate gangs. The Yamaguchi-gumi is the largest conglomerate, created in 1915 by Yamaguchi Harakichi but substantially developed and expanded only after World War II by Taka Kazuo. One of the most noticeable characteristics of a Yakuza is their full-body tattoos. The practice is derived from the bakudo, who used to cover their bodies with colorful tattoos. The tattoos are known as irezumi, and they usually cover the whole body save for a stripe along the center of the chest. Tattoos are a symbol of wealth, and they also demonstrate a man's fortitude because the conventional method is incredibly painful and takes several hours. Despite their illicit actions, the Yakuza pride themselves as ninkyo. While their tactics are frequently dubious, they have been known to undertake good deeds, such as giving and delivering supplies to earthquake victims following the 1995 Kobe earthquake and the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. Over time, the Yakuza transitioned toward white-collar crime, relying more and more on bribery rather than violence, and by the early 21st century, they were one of the world's least lethal criminal organizations. These activities complicate the relationship between the Yakuza and the authorities in Japan. Yakuza membership is not illegal, and Yakuza-owned companies and gang offices are frequently plainly recognized. There are very few women in high-profile positions in the Yakuza organization. The few women who are acknowledged in the organization are usually bosses' wives and are referred to as ain-san or older sister. A 12-page admission exam is required of all Yamaguchi-gumi members. The examination was designed to ensure that its members were conversant with the law and would not get into problems with the authorities. Yakuza wives frequently obtain the same tattoos as their husbands to express their devotion to their husbands and the organization. They flaunt their tattoos and pose for photos at festivals, but they are still widely stigmatized by Japanese society because of their Yakuza connections, and as a result, they are unable to swim in public. Tattoos are still frowned upon in Japan due to their association with the Yakuza. As a result, getting a tattoo in Japan is an extremely expensive venture due to the country's scarcity of artists. A Yakuza family would occasionally pay for someone's tattoo on the condition that they take what's theirs upon the person's death. The art is so precious that it is occasionally peeled off the owner's body, sold on the black market, and even shown in exhibitions. The katana, a classic samurai sword, is still utilized as a lethal weapon by the Yakuza. The swords have been used in many high-profile murders, including the 1994 assassination of Fujifilm Vice President Juntaro Suzuki for refusing to bribe Yakuza members. The Yakuza practice a sort of large-scale bribery or blackmail called sakaya. They begin by buying enough shares in a company to earn a presence at the table at shareholders' meetings. They gather any dirt they can on the leadership, then politely threaten to divulge it at a meeting unless they give them money. Because the Japanese fear being embarrassed more than anything else, the method is typically effective. In the Yakuza, a typical penalty for a violation is for the guilty party to chop off a bit of their pinky finger and give it to their boss. In ancient times, someone who was missing a portion of a finger would be unable to handle their sword as easily and would have to rely on his superior for safety. Between 1946 to 1981, Kazuo Tauka, nicknamed as the Godfather of Godfathers, was the third head of the largest Yakuza organization. He grew up as an orphan before turning to street fighting in Kobe under the tutelage of his future boss, Noboru Yamaguchi. His distinctive skill of clawing at his opponent's eyes earned him the moniker the Bear. He was shot in the back of the neck by a rival gang member in a nightclub in Kyoto in 1978, but he survived. His assailant was discovered dead in the woods outside Kobe some weeks later.